Hey friends, I hope your week is off to a great start. Today we're going to be trying out Molly Baz's recipe for sour cream and onion biscuits from the Basically Better Baking series. I'm a big biscuit fan. I've made them a couple times on the channel in the past, and I'm excited for this recipe for two reasons. So first, I love sour cream and onion, so the flavor combination sounds delicious. And number two, the method for making these biscuits as far as folding to get the layers versus stacking sounds really interesting. So I'm excited to try that out and learn something new. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Here in a large bowl, I've got all of my dry ingredients. So AP flour, kosher salt, black pepper, baking soda, baking powder, and granulated sugar. And I'm gonna get this all whisked together. So I'm using Sola's technique here of moving the bowl while whisking to ensure that everything's getting evenly incorporated. With the flour thoroughly mixed, we can go ahead and add in the butter. So to make it easier to get the butter broken into the flour, I'm just gonna cut this up into kind of small little chunks. You can see these are pretty small pieces of butter. All right, and then we're just gonna go in with our hands, kind of toss the butter around to get it coated in flour. That'll prevent it from sticking to itself. You wanna work pretty quickly here. The recipe says to go in here and squeeze these between your palms. I generally find that that makes the butter melt down, so I prefer using my fingertips. However, if you like using your palms, that's great. If you wanted to use a pastry cutter here, you could probably do that as well. What we're looking for is flat little sheets of butter and nothing larger than the size of a pea. All right, so our flour mixture is looking great. So you can see here I've got some kind of little shards of butter. I've got some little pieces that are probably about the size of a pea, but overall everything in here is really nicely broken down. So now we can add in our scallions. This is 8 scallions. I sliced them crosswise, so we have little wheels. They're not cut diagonally like you would do as a garnish, so don't cut on the bias, you're cutting little rounds. And this is 8 scallions in total. I did the greens and the whites, but I did cut off probably about 1 inch at the root end. We're just gonna toss this in the flour to get them coated. And now we can make a well in the center here. And I've got 1.25 cups of sour cream. And this is chilled. And then working in circles here, I'm just gonna swirl it around and kind of pull the flour in to make a shaggy dough. Could have used a larger bowl probably, but we're gonna turn this out onto the work surface anyhow, so it's no big deal. All right, and this is what we're looking for. So you can see very large clumps have formed. It's mostly incorporated. It's not totally perfect. If I had used a larger bowl, I could have folded this and kneaded it a bit in the bowl itself. However, I didn't do that, so we're gonna turn this out onto the work surface now. All right, so I have a little extra flour. We've got our dough here that's mostly incorporated. I'm gonna push this together and just kind of knead it a few times to get those dry bits incorporated into one solid mass. All right, and I think that's looking pretty good. All right, so now at this point, this is where the technique switches from what I've done in the past. So I'm patting this down into a rectangle. We want it to be about 8 inches by 4 inches. That's about 4 inches, and this is about 8 inches long. So I'm gonna square up the sides. All right, and now we're gonna fold this like an envelope. So I'm coming to the back side here, folding this into the center, and then coming to the other side and folding this over the top. So you can see I've got this big log here, and now we're gonna press this down into a rectangle that's 8 by 4 again. So pressing it down about 1 inch thick is what we're looking for. So again, I'm going under one side, to the center, other side, to the center, and now we're done. Now, the one thing that's a little bit controversial about this from my reading is that by doing this, we've essentially wrapped the dough in a circle. So when we cut the pieces, you might have some biscuits that expand upward and kind of flip because the gluten structure is kind of wrapped around the outside. I don't know whether that's 100% true, but I have read it in multiple different sources. You can watch my other biscuit videos to see what the technique I used before is. If you didn't have a bench scraper, you could just use your hand. You could use the side of a rolling pin, whatever you need to do to get it into an 8 by 4 rectangle. So that is 4. That is 8, so I think that's looking pretty nice. And we're about 1.5 inches tall, probably. So this makes 8 biscuits, so I'm going to use just my bench scraper to cut through the center here. And then we're going to cut it in half again, cut it in half here. Obviously, the benefit of making square biscuits is that you don't have offcuts from making rounds, so there's zero waste here, So the recipe makes 8 biscuits. However, Molly said they're best eaten the day of. So I'm going to bake 4 of these and I'm going to freeze the other 4. Biscuits hold up really well in the freezer if you just freeze them as dough. So don't be scared to make this recipe if you don't plan on eating all of these at once. All right, so for the biscuits that I'm baking today, I've got some melted butter here. I'm going to brush this onto the surface. And this is going to kind of obviously give a shiny coating. It's delicious because it's butter, but it's also going to help hold on some flaky salt. So I'm going to pop these into my preheated 425-degree oven for 18 to 22 minutes. They should be puffy. They should be nice and golden brown. So use your eyes, use your nose, assess what's going on in your oven because bake time could vary. So my biscuits baked for a total of 20 minutes, and this is the end result. So I think I got a good amount of lift. The tops are definitely nice and golden brown. The bottom here is nice and golden as well. So overall, I'm really pleased with the aesthetic of these. The rise seems generally even around all sides. I expected there to be a little bit of pulling due to that kind of envelope technique. However, it doesn't really seem to be the case, so I'm not overly concerned. These have cooled for about 5 minutes, so they are very warm to the touch still. It feels structurally sound, though, not like it wants to fall apart. So I am dying to dig into this. The fragrance here is great. It's very like sour creamy and onion, which is obviously, I guess, to be expected. However, the fragrance of the sour cream really comes through, which is a little bit surprising. So let's go ahead and break this open. How do I want to do this? I guess I'm going to do a little pull apart here. Oh my gosh. I hope you can see the steam. So again, only about 5 minutes of cooling here. I'm really eager to eat these, and I have a virtual happy hour with friends that I need to get to. So I might have wanted to let these cool a little bit longer if time weren't a constraint for me right now. But the inside does look fluffy. I don't know that I would say it's very layered necessarily. Like Claire's buttermilk biscuits, you could almost kind of peel them apart. They were super, super flaky. This looks very tender, but I don't know that I would say it's layery necessarily. I do see some layer action happening on the outside, but not quite as much on the interior. But let's give it a taste. Okay, take it back. There are layers in here. Biting in, I can see it's kind of puffing apart here. So it is a little bit flaky. It is a little bit layery. The taste of this is incredible. It feels very kind of summery almost. I don't know if it's like the green onion in there that's giving that really kind of like bright and sharp flavor along with the sour cream. I don't know why that makes me think of summer, but I wasn't expecting it to taste like this. It's much better than what I was thinking. That flaky salt on the top, super nice. I love, honestly, everything about this. This is so delicious. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with the taste, the appearance. Everything going on in this biscuit is excellent. So quarantine, no quarantine, this is definitely something that I would make again. And if you're wanting a homemade bread product and you don't have access to yeast, so you can't make the focaccia, this is super delicious. This would be great as a side dish. You could eat this for breakfast. You could almost make a sandwich out of this. It would be like super delicious. Cut this in half, put some egg on there. It'd be really, really tasty. So I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. I hope that you're healthy, happy, and safe. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.